I started baseball back at Exeter High School. That's where I was born and raised, in Exeter, small town. I think we had about 4,500 people altogether at the high school. My class had roughly 60 people in it. I went to school there and I played all the sports. But in between, I was relocated to Poston, Arizona. That was when I was in the 8th grade. And so my freshman year in Poston, there was very little school. So all I did was play, and I had a great time. I enjoyed it thoroughly. And then I started my high school career at Poston, Arizona. There was no football, but there was a lot of baseball. Played a lot of baseball. Then when the war was over, we got back to Exeter, and I started in school there. And at first it was real difficult because I was a junior, and the war had just been over, and I started September of the year that the war was over. And so I played football. I had some good friends. These were the people that really took good care of me. And so they took care of me, and we got interested in the football. I started playing football, and we go to some of these towns, and they weren't too nice to me. And so my teammates, my friends, they really stuck up for me. And so that's the one thing I remember about high school, how they were just great. I played all the sports in high school. There was nothing else to do. I even caught in baseball. And baseball was not one of my favorite sports. I only played because I had to. Then I got an offer to a scholarship at Fresno State playing football. And so I went to school at Fresno State on a football scholarship. And then I didn't like spring ball. You know, the practice, there's nothing to do but practice and just run and get in shape and so forth. So somehow I got interested in baseball as an alternative to going to spring football. And so I started playing for Pete Biden. And I got to really enjoy the game. In fact, I can tell you a story about Pete. You know, he was such a traditionalist and so forth. The only classes I got an A in college were in PE. He gave me a D because I wasn't a good student. But anyway, I played for Pete, and then I played football. Then at the end of my career at the Fresno State, I got an offer to play for the St. Louis Browns. Tony Rebello was the scout at that time. And so I signed, and I went to Stockton, and I played in Stockton the rest of that 1953 2-year, I guess it was. And then I went into service for 2 years. Went to Fort Ord, and I was lucky enough to play baseball both years at Fort Ord. And so you can tell that during the off season, when baseball wasn't being played after I finished with the basic training, they put me in charge of, well, not in charge of, but they put me in the tactics division. And so you can picture me teaching these guys how to take a hill. That was ridiculous. And I laugh about it every time I think about it now. While I was at Fort Ord, this friend of mine, his dad, Mr. Zenimura, whom I had played for during the off season, he had contacted me about playing in Japan. And so I approached the St. Louis Browns, and I told them what the situation was, and they were good enough to give me my release. And so with that release in hand, I went to Japan, and I can tell you some funny stories. I couldn't speak Japanese when I went to Japan, and here I am Japanese. And so they were trying to teach me on the train before I got to Hiroshima, you know, what I'm supposed to say. And so I went there, and I got off the train, and there was this big crowd. I thought, my God, something couldn't have been for me. But anyway, I said, I am Satoshi Hirayama, and I said, instead of saying, leaving it right there, I said, Mr. Satoshi Hirayama, and you don't say those things in Japan. And so people just laugh like crazy at me. One other instance I can remember real sharply is I'm playing ball my first year, and I can't speak Japanese. So the other players, they told me, whenever the umpire, I mean the referee, I mean the coach or the manager tells you something, you use this term, which in Hiroshima lingo was kabachi tarena, which means don't give me any of your lip. And so they told me that whenever the manager says something to you, just tell him that. That means I understand. And so here he comes, the manager comes and tells me something. I says, kabachi tarena. He looks at me, I thought he was going to hit me. Then I look at the bench, they're all just cracking up. They're just cracking up. They're rolling on the bench. And the manager looks and he says, oh, he figured it out. He said, they fooled me. The other thing that I remember mostly about Japan is they played a different type of ball game. They really played for the one run every inning. And they never slid into second to break up a double play. And I know I did that a couple times, and whenever they started throwing the ball right through my head, I knew then that they learned how to take care of that situation. Because whenever I came into second base, they threw the ball right through me, and I slid real quick.